I was playing Band Heroic. That's how long ago that was.
That was one of the first matches I covered. My first Open, Harlan Fear was out there repping the long hair. It was when he played against the Green Power Ranger.
Oh, yeah. That's actually a best of the SCG Tour now.
All right, so Zan is on the play. See, he did have the better Swiss records. Leads on the tap Sacred Foundry. Harlan Fear is going to be a mountain into a Fanatical Firebrand. Zan to 19.
Yeah, this is a spot where you definitely want to have a one-drop when you're on the draw to make sure you start applying some pressure. Hopefully Harlan has a follow-up here, and for him, hopefully there is no definite Clarion on the following turn.
Tapped Hollowed Fountain for turn 2 for Zan. Harlan will start his turn with an attack with the Fanatical Firebrand. Zan's going to 18. We're having a little bit of issues updating life totals. We'll get that sorted out. There you go. Get to Lava Runner as the follow-up. Zan will shock that, and then we'll go back his way.
Yeah, Zan wanted to save that spot removal for a slightly larger creature, and while Lava Runner does have the same power as Fanatical Firebrand, it does have the ability to potentially get larger.
Glacial Fortress is a third land for Zan, and here is Saheeli.
Yeah, and this one's going to be relatively problematic for Harlan to deal with. If he's not able to clear it this turn, those 1/1s are going to stifle his aggression on the ground, and then he's going to be basically forced to throw every piece of burn at the dome, because if he wastes a bunch on the Saheeli, he might not be able to close at the end of the game.
Yeah, Saheeli, just a huge loyalty planeswalker.
Yeah.
Makes a stream of chunt blockers. It can be a big problem.
Now, for sure. I mean, it does get checked by Goblin Chain Whirler pretty well, but if Harlan's unable to find one, or Zan can potentially make some blockers mid-combat, perhaps with an Opt or a Shock, or even a Spell Pierce, like if a Burn Spell goes awry. So I do think that Saheeli is fairly problematic, especially for this current board state, but can be checked with a Chain Whirler if drawn.
Harlan's going to take some time, think over his turn here. Land number 3, it's another mountain. It's just an all-mountain deck. Runaway Steamkin into another Firebrand, grow the Steamkin, and the Firebrands are just going to attack Zan. He'll fall to 16.
Not in love with letting the Saheeli stick around, but to me that kind of signifies that Harlan actually does have a Goblin Chain Whirler somewhere floating in his hand. I think he's correctly assessed that Zan doesn't have a Deafening Clarion in his hand because he used that shock on turn 2 instead of untapping and casting the Clarion for a clean 2-for-1. So he goes ahead and deploys 2 more threats to the battlefield, and now Zan's under a bit of pressure.
Yeah, when you go back over his way. Now, Saheeli frequently is going to show up in a deck that's full up on redraws, a bunch of stuff like Opt, Chart of Course. You don't see too much of that. It is an Opt deck. There's 4 Opt, 4 Shock, a couple Mox Amber, though generally Zan does not make more than 1 token a turn.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ceiling is 3, and that's like pretty rare.
Yeah, that 3 would usually involve casting multiple Planeswalkers late in the game, using Planeswalkers to redraw. There are some 4-mana Planeswalkers in the deck. He has a couple copies of Karn. We have seen other builds playing Kasmina. He's not on that one, but
yeah, they've mostly decided to cut Kasmina, I think, for Saheeli Sublime Artificer because the fact that it costs 3 and generates a lot of protection for your other Planeswalkers. Kasmina kind of does that, but the difference between 3 and 4, the delta is just enormous.
Zan will start with an Opt, make a Servo, scry to the bottom, draw off of that one.
Plus, because they start playing Saheeli Sublime Artificer, they can actually cut Fibblethip for something like Opt, so their draws are a little bit more smooth in the early turns.
Land for Zan will be a tapped Hollowed Fountain, and then he does have the Shock for the Runaway Steamkin. That's a pretty big win. Another Servo will join the party. We'll go back Harlan's way.
Yeah, now you see these 2 servos are threatening to trade with Fanatical Firebrand, so Harlan basically not going to attack until he finds a Goblin Chain Whirler, but it looks like he has one. I'm curious to see what his play is for the turn.
Yeah, hand seems to have that. Harlan did give his third turn a bit of pause, so likely was thinking about the kind of ramifications on Zan's turn here. See the 4th land, Mountain shows up. Here's Goblin Chain Whirler. Clean up those servos, 1 point to Saheeli. Zan falls to 15. And see if the Firebrands, they are going to attack Zan once again.
Okay. Harlan has made a very conscious decision to go face with a lot of his stuff instead of trying to check this Saheeli. I like it.
Yep. Zan falls to 13, and we'll see what he can do for here. Last turn likely was opting, trying to find Deafening and Clarion. We did not see it. Looks like he does not have it this turn either. There's a Narset Parter of Veils. Makes a Servo. Take a look at the top 4.
Well, don't count him out yet. Looks like he found one off the top as the first card, but could go land Mox Amber. We saw that earlier in the tournament, one of these Jeskai Super Friends players. I believe it was actually Zan who did exactly that.
Yeah, so he finds Deafening and Clarion here. That is a pretty big win for him. But, yeah, no additional mana sources. He'll pass back.
Now here I think Harlan needs to kind of clean up these Planeswalkers while he still can. I'm pretty sure he has another Goblin Chain Whirler in hand, so he could pretty safely cast that and then clean up both Planeswalkers. But looks like he's going to go to the face with a trigger off of Fanatical Firebrand and start lighting up that stage.
So Firebrand puts Zan to 12, and here is Light Up the Stage pre-combat. He's playing into a known Deafening Clarion, so he has to navigate a little bit about that. Mountain and Runaway Steamkin exiled. Probably want to wait until next turn to put too much stuff on the battlefield. He'll use the Firebrand to shoot down a Servo. Chain Whirler goes for the Narset. He'll take that one down.
Yeah, very lucky there that Zan didn't have something like Opt to really punish that play, because then an Opt would allow him to create another Servo and chump block. But, I mean, he could have had Shock or something to go along with it just to make sure that the Narset gets taken care of.
So back on Zan's turn, we know about a Deafening Clarion. Missed a land drop on the previous turn. See how much damage you can do with this Saheeli. Cast another Narset. Get a Servo token for that.
You might look at Deafening Clarion in this deck and think, oh, it doesn't really work well with Saheeli. What it does do, though, Saheeli actually forces your opponent to overextend to punch through all of those tokens, and then the moment that they play one too many creatures, you sweep them up with Deafening Clarion, and then after that, Saheeli's tokens start to take over the game.
Yeah, and also because, as we were talking about earlier, it's not a deck that really turbo Saheelis, you know what I mean?
Right.
You don't cast a ton of spells into it, so it's largely making chump blockers anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So the Narset's going to find its Fairy Hero of Dominaria.
Yeah, the primary purpose of Saheeli in this deck is defense. You just want to make sure that it's really hard for your opponent to attack your Planeswalkers.
Zan will play a 5th land, a Glacial Fortress, and we'll go back Harlan's way. Has that Runaway Steamkin in exile until the end of this turn off of that Light Up the Stage.
Now, he's going to try to get the Steamkin up to a 4/4, so it dodges Deafening Clarion. That's why he waited a turn. He's going to need 3 1-mana spells or a land in order to get that done.
First spell is a Fanatical Firebrand. Uses that to hit a Servo. Goblin Chain Whirler punches down this Narset. And it's going to pass. Just a 2/2 Steamkin.
Yeah, and unfortunately for him, that's going to get cleaned up. There's no one card in his deck that can grow that Steamkin by 2 counters. So Clarion, pretty good here, but worthwhile to cast because it was going to go away anyway off that Light Up the Stage.
Second creature is nice because he knows about Deafening Clarion and Teferi. So he kind of forces Zan to choose one. He'll go with the Clarion, sweep up those creatures, and the Servo token he made. Mobilized District was the land for turn. And we'll go back to Fear. He's going to need something to get on the table. Frequently with these mono-red decks, that means something that costs 4. That's how they play into the late game. Experimental Frenzy, Chandra Fire Artisan. Looks like the hand is Goblin Chain Whirler Lightning Strike, which can clean up the Saheeli, and you see he's going to start with Lightning Strike there. And here's a Chain Whirler. That'll clean it up.
Yeah, and it's possible that Harlan is regretting a little bit attacking the face a few turns ago as opposed to the Saheeli itself. That Lightning Strike still being in hand might have been able to potentially combo kill this Teferi in a turn or two. And I think there were roughly 3 or 4 points actually missed on the Teferi with the Fanatical Firebrands. Now, that does leave Zan at 11, and if Harlan is able to peel something like Experimental Frenzy, he could go off and ultimately burn Zan out. But you need to use all of your resources as if they're precious in this matchup, because those Planeswalkers accrue advantages every single turn that they're on the battlefield.
Yeah, and Harlan is empty-handed now as Zan is deploying Teferi Hero of Dominaria. He goes up to 5. Here's a Mox Amber. Untap 2 lands and pass the turn.
Yeah, and that allows him to actually activate the Mobilized District, leaves him with 3 mana plus that, and costs -1 for that Teferi. So he does have a chump block here to protect his Teferi if he so chooses.
Ooh, this is a tap of 4. Chandra
baby.
Fire Artisan.
All right.
Pretty good draw for Harlan.
Now, when you're empty-handed, that is a nice one. And now Zan's going to need something like double Spell Pierce to get this before it hits the battlefield. But if he does that, then Teferi's going to get punched for 3. Now,
and you can pull up Zan's deck on Cardboard Live. It would be double Spell Pierce, like you said. This is not a Dovin's Veto deck in the main deck.
Yeah, and there's a good chance that those do come in after sideboard, but we'll just have to see how he approaches it at that point.
So it looks like Chandra was good. Goblin Chain Whirler attacks. It's going to just eat the Mobilized District in combat. Now Harlan to exile his top card with Chandra. It was a mountain. He'll play that, and we'll go back Zan's way. Ferry will start by plussing. Or maybe not. There are 2 pretty good permanents on Harlan's side of the table. Yeah, here's a -3 on Chandra.
Seen Zan bulk quite a few times in this tournament, but that's mostly because these Planeswalkers are so versatile and so hard to navigate perfectly. And there, he thought about ticking up, ultimately decided it's very worthwhile to get that Chandra off the battlefield, as long as he can protect Teferi, and he can now with this dragon from Sarkhan.
So his land Interplanar Beacon, cast Sarkhan, goes to 12, makes a dragon, so now he has a good blocker for the Chain Whirler. Once again, Harlan's got to peel something pretty special here. Chain Whirler attacks Teferi, triggers Sarkhan, that does 1 damage with the dragon. Dragon blocks, and Harlan's seen enough.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a bluff attack, hoping that Zan would just let one of his Planeswalkers die instead of losing his 4/4 dragon. He called, and that was the game.
Yeah, so that's not going to work out for Fear there. So Zan Syed up a game here with Jeskai Super Friends. Let's take a look at sideboards here. Options in the Zan sideboard, we have those 4 Legion War Bosses. We've seen them come in a lot of matchups. What do you think about this one?
Nah, this is a matchup where he just needs to buckle down, become the control deck first and foremost. He needs to make sure that he has answers to creatures, as well as just like a slew of really powerful interaction.
All right, 3 Prison Realm.
I do like that one. Goblin Chain Whirler can be pretty gross. I think Saheeli is a bit weaker in this matchup than most, just because Goblin Chain Whirler checks it pretty well. So I might be looking for some real defense in Prison Realm, as a removal spell is quite good, especially when you know that there's at least 2, maybe 3 Chandra Fire Artisans on the other side of the table.
Okay, 3 Dovin's Veto.
This one I always go back and forth on. The same with Spell Pierce in the main deck. Counter spells have utility against mono red, but if you're behind, they don't kill creatures. And most of the time, you need your early interaction to be able to kill creatures. Now, with that said, once you have established control, if you're at like 10 plus life, there's literally nothing else you want to draw besides Dovin's Veto, because that shuts off Chandra, Experimental Frenzy, Lethal Burn spells. I might bring in a couple, but I don't think you want to load up on them.
Sure. 2 Lava Coil.
Yeah, absolutely. All the removal coming in here.
All right, Lyra, Dawnbringer, Deafening Clarion. These seem like home runs.
Yeah, for sure. Lyra Dawnbringer, almost specifically for this matchup, it has utility in others as well, but it is quite good here. Deafening Clarion, also, you saw just how good it was in Game 1 there.
All right, then for Harlan Fear on the red aggro side of things, needs some help. He's down a game. We have 4 Lava Coil.
Yeah, not really something you want here. Lava Coil is great against creature-heavy decks, and this is not that.
3 Rekindling Phoenix.
I do like Phoenix quite a bit. When Deafening Clarion is the primary removal source, as well as Shock, Rekindling Phoenix gains a lot of value. Now, with that said, Zan will have access to a couple copies of Lava Coil after sideboard, and those could play a factor, but I do like Rekindling Phoenix as a means of pressuring opposing planeswalkers, as well as just having that durability.
3 Tybalts.
I do like Tybalt. It does generate a couple of attackers, and if those attackers are dealt with, sometimes that chip damage from the doubles can finish off planeswalkers. The life gain is not going to be that relevant, but if he does take a Tybalt against something like Lyra Dawnbringer, it's going to slow it down for at least a turn, which I do like.
Right. 2 Risk Factor.
I think they're coming in. I'm not the hugest fan of the card in general. The more I play with it in this format, the more I feel like everything's about jockeying for position on the battlefield, and Risk Factor generates either just raw damage to the face or raw cards, and I don't think either of those is really where you want to be against the Planeswalker deck. You just want to put some creatures on the battlefield and either hope they're good enough or play something as immediately overwhelming as Experimental Frenzy or Chandra Fire Artisan.
Right. 2 Direfleet Daredevil.
Most of the instant sorceries from Zan are going to be removal, even though he does have Opt, and he doesn't really have that many instant sorceries for Daredevil to hit, so I would leave it in the sideboard.
3rd copy of Experimental Frenzy.
Yeah, I'm definitely bringing that one in. If he had drawn that instead of Chandra, there's a chance that it would have gotten out of control in that last game.
Yeah, definitely makes sense to try to hit that one. You saw how good the 4-mana spells, or rather necessary, they were in that Game 1 situation. He just kind of ran away with it, the value on Zan's side of things. But, now, as Cedric Phillips likes to say, let's sell some stuff. We had a magic sale going on StarCityGames.com. Hundreds of new singles on sale through Monday. New sale every week. Check out this stuff. We got Lightning Bolts. We got Skullbriars. Do you know Skullbriar?
I know it's like a commander card, and that's it. That's all I know.
Right, so it's green-black, as you can see.
Oh, yeah.
It's 1/1 with haste.
I can read it.
When it hits your opponent, you put a +1/+1 counter on it.
Nice.
And you keep the counters on it as it changes zones.
Oh.
So if it has 3 counters, dies, goes to the command zone, you cast it again, it still has those counters.
Okay, and is that it? Does it get like something cool?
What do you mean is that it?
Well, does it have like an effect like for every +1/+1 counter on it, you can...
For every +1/+1 counter on it, it deals 1 more damage when it attacks.
Yeah, but that seems like a red planeswalker.
It costs 2 mana.
But that seems way more like a planeswalker that's called red.
I think that the tracking is like the green-black,
Yeah.
the rot sticks with it.
Sure.
It's very flavorful. You wouldn't understand, you're not a commander player.
I thought it was going to be something like once per turn you may cast a creature from your graveyard for free as long as it has casting costs X or less, where X is number of +1/+1 counters on it.
Well, it already has so many abilities. Haste, attack,
Yeah,
block.
but have you seen Commander?
That's true.
There's a lot of
You
text.
can fit a lot of text. Yeah, you can check out that sale on our website. You can drum that up with Imperial Recruiter, though it's much better as a commander than a card in your deck.
Oh, absolutely. You want it to move zones and keep the counters, not keep counters in the graveyard for no reason.
Right.
I will say this. The sales that we have on StarCityGames.com/sale are always really cool and thoughtful. And the reason why our graphics just say, we have a sale, is because for when you see this on YouTube, you can still go to the sale. Because it's not always the holiday sale. But during the holidays, we do have a holiday sale.
That's true.
Stuff like that. So
It's very malleable.
yeah.
We're always selling stuff.
It's gonna rain. It's gotta be. You gotta be a blanket. You gotta cover it all. Both players shuffling up here for game 2. Harlan with his back against the wall. A win here for him would catapult him definitely into the top 8. He's hovering in the low 20s on our Players Championship leaderboard.
Yeah, exactly 20th place coming into the weekend. Top 8 here was 15 points. Actually in the top 4, so he's getting at least 20 points this weekend.
Yeah, that's crazy.
His opponent, Syed, actually was in 17th coming into the weekend. Played 18 opens last year, 5 top 8s, and a win.
That's a pretty good resume for 2018. Very impressive stuff. Zan also one of the major proponents last year of Spirits, along with Cat Light, whenever Supreme Phantom was first previewed. Actually,
Yeah.
I think he lost in the finals of that Open, or maybe he won with Spirits. But I know there was like back-to-back Opens where he top 4'd or won, and I forget which decks he won or whatever with.
Definitely put on a show with that stuff. Enjoys exploring new restaurants as long as they're rated 4.5 or higher, which I would not qualify as exploring, but
Yeah, I mean, give me the 2.5s. Give me the, I don't want to say the word. Yeah, the dive bar. Give me the place that smells like mold.
I won't eat in a building unless I can find 3 signs that it is due to be condemned.
Give me the place. Give me the place where they clearly bribed the health inspector.
Yeah. If I believe that the health inspector has been inside of the building, I'm walking.
Oh.
Looks like Harlan is taking a mulligan on the play here, down a game. Zan contemplating his 7-card hand. You can kind of get a look at it here. I see lands and spells. I think I only see blue-white lands.
Yeah, I thought so too, in a mobilized district. So perhaps missing the red, but he is on the draw, and Harlan is taking a mulligan, so this might be a fine keep. And also, if he has something like a Teferi Time Raveler or a Narset, like he has some ways to generate some card advantage even without that red mana.
Yeah, there's a good amount of early action in the deck. Also, stuff like Deafening Clarion is usually very good when you find your red. On turn 4, it's often good enough.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those cards that can really catch you back up. This Jeskai Super Friends deck, I gotta say, it's been something else.
I've been very impressed watching this deck this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried out some of the versions with Fibblethip and a lot of Mox Ambers and stuff, and it didn't really stick with me. I saw John Rolfe. He made like he made Mythic really quickly. I know Martin Yuza actually used the deck to get #1 Mythic today with it, and but it didn't really click for me. But this version I really like.
Harlan's looking at a hand he does not really like. It was a one-lander on 6, and he's going to send it back.
Yeah, on the play, even with the scry, I don't think you can keep that. You need, if he had a 1-drop, I think that is a keepable hand. But with a couple of 2-drops, a couple of 3-drops, you can't really keep the one-lander on the play because if you miss, you're dead.
And you can't count him out. That is one thing about the red deck in this format.
Mm-hmm.
Light up the stage, experimental frenzy. If you can make your land drops, as long as you're doing something reasonable, these cards can just take you into the long game and just totally dominate the long game as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Harlan can open up with a really great 5 and have a great shot at winning this game. And also, since we've seen Zan probably doesn't have access to red mana here, there's a chance that Zan actually stumbles too. So there's always that to take into consideration. The mono red decks are, if anything, they're consistent. They are low to the ground. They play a bunch of really cheap stuff, and if the opponent just doesn't have the right type of interaction at the right time, sometimes they fall behind and die.
Harlan looks at his 5, keeps this one pretty quickly.
Let's go.
He's got
1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop. There we go.
He'll scry to the bottom, but yes, going to start to curve out. Get to Lava Runner will be his turn 1 play. Zan will play a tapped Hollow Fountain. We'll go back Harlan's way. We know he's got a Runaway Steamkin in the hand. He's going to go ahead and cast that and attack for 1. Zan to 19.
He also drew a risk factor for the turn. If he can draw a land, deploy that Goblin Chain Whirler, he can apply a lot of pressure here in a very short amount of time and force Zan to have a Deafening Glare on as early as turn 3, or else he's going to be in a lot of trouble.
Not seeing a third land. It's the second Steamkin. First one up to 2 and attack for 3. Zan to 16.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's still a lot of damage coming in, and now you just have to cross your fingers. Zan at this point is the one under pressure. If he doesn't have the answers, he's going to die. These creatures are going to attack him for 20 damage.
Yeah, so we want Hollowed Fountain, Hollowed Fountain. Here's Mobilized District. He'll cast Prison Realm, take care of the bigger Steamkin, scry 1. Keeps the card on top. That is unsettling.
Yeah, that is unsettling. That probably means it's red mana and probably going to get hit with a Deafening Glare next turn. Harlan, though, misses land number 3. Doesn't have the mana to deploy Goblin Chain Whirler. Does have light up the stage, though. Wow, what a draw.
So Zan to 14 off the attack. Finds 2 mountains with the light. So grows the Steamkin post-combat. Has his land drop lined up for next turn. We'll see what Zan has.
This also means he doesn't have to overextend into the Deafening Glare on here, and he can follow it up with a Goblin Chain Whirler.
Zan had to shock to cast it. It was a Sacred Foundry, so he's at 12. Harlan will play that mountain that he got last turn. And here's the Goblin Chain Whirler, Zan to 11.
Yeah, this is looking nice for Harlan, actually, on this mulligan to 5. His hand still has a risk factor and then 1 unknown card. And with Zan at 11, he's going to probably have to give him 3 cards at some point here.
Yeah, Zan opted to the bottom end step.
Oh, no.
Glacial Fortress. What do we have on 5?
Oh no.
Ooh, Lyra Dawnbringer.
Lyra Doombringer.
Right.
Oh, what
Harlan cannot be thrilled to see that one. Attacks for 3, might be hoping for a block, not clear. Zan goes to 8.
That was a masterful attack. I am almost positive Harlan does not have a burn spell in hand.
Yeah, I think it's risk factor.
It's risk factor, Visceral Pyromancer, and Chandra. That's his hand.
Really well played there.
He snapped it off. That was Tom Ross level bluff.
We'll see if he can do enough with that, though. He got those 3 free points. Here's Chandra. He'll plus that. Goodbye risk factor. Go back Zan's way.
Yeah, but this actually kind of forces the Lyra Dawnbringer to attack once. He does gain the 5 life, but he'll immediately take the 5 damage from the Chandra to clear it. And that'll give Harlan 1 good turn to potentially close out the game, as long as Zan doesn't have a really good follow-up here.
Yeah, we'll see what he has. It would be unfortunate for Harlan if Zan has had Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. There's a few things that he can have in his deck, but he's taking his time. So maybe that's a sigh of relief for Harlan.
Well, that also is probably really bad, because that means he has a lot of options.
Yeah,
now, they might all be bad options.
Right, you hope that they're bad options. See, Steam Vents, Deafening Clarion fanned out in the hand.
Yeah, it looks like a couple of blue Planeswalkers there, too. Maybe a Narset. Just have to see.
Yeah, the mono blue Planeswalkers, they tend to be pretty slow to be impactful. So Lyra attacks Chandra. So there's 5 life gain, but then 5 damage bouncing back off of Chandra losing loyalty. So Zan will end up back at 8 at the end of that.
Whoa, Zan may have made a pretty crucial error here. He thought he had 2 red for that. Sarkhan had to take it back and then cast Deafening Clarion instead.
Yeah, so played tap Steam Vents, didn't want to shock for that. So the Goblin Chain Whirler is down, back on Harlan's turn. He will cast Risk Factor main phase. And at 8, that is a real question for Zan, though he does have that Lyra, so he'll just take 4.
He does just take 4, and there's no 2-card combo after that kills him from Harlan with just 1 mana. It was Land Vaishnav Pyromancer. He's going to get Zan down to 2, and you have to think back to that double mulligan, and now he's just 2 points short.
It does not feel good.
Does not. All right, Zan here going to untap with Lyra Dawnbringer, one of the best feelings in the world against a mono red aggressive deck, being able to either play defense or attack with it and gain some precious life points. Let's see how he plays this turn.
The similar to Baneslayer Angel type card. God, was it Magic 2010 or 2011 when that one came out? It was way longer ago than I want to admit.
I don't know, but I was not 30. I know that.
Zan's thinking about his options here. From 2, gotta be a little bit careful, but he will be going up to 7 off the Lyra this turn. He's going to start with a Narset, Porter of Veils, put that down to 3, look at the top 4 cards.
Yeah, looking for a piece of interaction, but basically anything will do.
Well,
instead,
what about nothing?
Yeah.
4 cards going to the bottom.
Nothing is not good. Now, here's the thing that I want to point out, just how good these 3-mana blue Planeswalkers are, because something like Narset Porter of Veils doesn't seem like it should be good against a hyper-aggressive red deck, and it is so good that Zan still has it in his deck here after sideboard.
It's turning off that risk factor, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it does turn off risk factor, which is pretty funny, but also really disheartening. And yet again, another reason why I'm not a huge fan of the card.
So Zan 127 off of his attack, Harlan to 15. On Harlan's turn, he got to attack the Narset down to 1, cast a Rekindling Phoenix, but that one's a little bit smaller than Lyra.
It is, but it is really, really hard to kill. It's going to take something like Teferi here of Dominaria to really check it. Maybe a bounce off of Teferi Time Raveler, unsure. But the thing is that Zan can't really attack into the Rekindling Phoenix because Harlan can just block and then potentially swing back for 4. So it's only a +1 life gain.
He did manage to cast that Sarkhan this turn, and he untapped that red land, so he made a dragon. Harlan will take that down with another Vyashino Pyromancer, though Harlan's not able to attack here. He'll go back Zan's way.
Yeah, I mean, that Lyra Dawnbringer is a giant brick wall. Harlan's going to really need something like Experimental Frenzy here.
All right, let's see what Zan can do. It does not take much for him to really pull ahead here. Something like either Teferi to deal with the Rekindling Phoenix would be huge. Here's another Narset. He'll minus that. That's a lot of looks for something.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be Deafening Clarion, but I think Clarion would be pretty good. But another Sark in the master list, that can potentially generate another dragon and then threaten a big aerial assault the turn after.
Yeah, so Sarkhan going to hand. Can't cast that one just yet.
I think there's a chance that if Zan actually attacks with the Lyra Dawnbringer, Harlan just doesn't block. And that's like basically a free 5-point swing. It leaves the Narset like a little bit vulnerable, but if Harlan is swinging with everything at Narset, it's kind of a win for you, especially when you're at 7.
Yeah, and you just get to keep gaining life too.
Yeah.
So you're not super concerned about much. And if everything comes at the Narset, and you already gained 5, you're no longer really concerned about the risk factor being jump-started, right? You can go to 8.
Yeah, for sure. Zan here really taking his time, and I think that that's really smart because there's not a lot of turns left in this game, and maybe not a lot of turns left in this match, and everyone is going to be crucial.
And it's going to be a full attack, Lyra and the Dragon rumbling in. So Rekindling Phoenix. It's like a block. It's going to trade with the Dragon. Lyra connects 12 to 10 on the life totals in favor of Zan. Shock down your egg. The Phoenix will not come back.
Yeah, I like that play from Zan. It's really aggressive, and that sends him up to 12, so he's well out of burn range. Harlan going to be 8 points short right now, which means that he's probably going to have to send both these at Narset, or at least one of them at Narset, and then perhaps do some risk factor stuff. Oh, no.
And Zan just has another shock.
Oh, no.
One of those Pyromancers goes down. It looks like the other did connect, so Zan at 10, but 10 to 10 when you have a Lyra Dawnbringer, that's not a close race.
I'm going to do a thing.
Yeah?
Down goes Ferrer. Is that not it? I feel like that was all right, but you know.
He's going to hang on for a bit, but this game is not looking good for him. We see that extra Sarkin showing up, going up. Narset's alive. Well, Harlan will lightning strike that down, actually.
That
so
is nice.
Narset not so alive.
Yeah, so the plus from Sarkin means that he doesn't get the dragon. And Harlan actually has to do that before it becomes the 4/4. So Zan actually gets the chance to decide whether or not he does want to attack with the Leer Donger and Bringer, but he does.
One last draw set for Fear.
That's
It's a
it.
mountain that's not going to do it. Zan Syed 2-0 over Harlan Fear makes quick work of